Let's start the recording. Okay, so as I said earlier on, before we actually embark on the study of the Bhagavatam, we will just do a little bit of a discussion around how do we bring spirituality to our daily lives, how do we make it much more relatable. So today we will be speaking on purpose of life. Last week and the week before that, we spoke about gratitude, about dependence on the Lord, as well as the acceptance of the will of the Lord. So let's progress. We begin with our Mangla Charan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhayeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nashtaprayasta Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Anuj Prabhu, is the volume okay? Is the audio okay? Do you hear any disturbance in the background?
It's okay. I think there's some, there was some discrepancy, like disturbance. So I thought someone is, is unmuted. So I was trying to mute everyone who's open. I think it's okay now, Prabhuji.
Okay, give me a minute. Okay, I think it's because my wife was actually using the phone too. She was also listening. Is this better now, Prabhu?
I think still that echo sound was there a bit. So I think only one phone should be usable there. Yeah.
Give me a minute. Sorry about this. Should be okay now, I think.
Yeah, it's clear now, Prabhuji.
Okay, good. So, yeah, a minute. Right. So, if you look at psychology, if you look at corporate literature,
the rain was so heavy that whole of that was wet.
Krishnan Prabhu, you have to mute yourself. So, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So essentially, Maslow has done some amazing research on what are the needs of an individual, right? It starts with psychological needs, which is anyone needs water, food, basic shelter, clothing, sleep, and clean air. Once an individual has satisfied these psychological needs, and then he upgrades himself to a different set of needs, which is safety and security. Beyond that comes love and belonging, which is in the form of having a family, right? Friendship, a sense of connection. And beyond that is once that person has satisfied his psychological needs, his safety needs, the belonging needs, then comes self-esteem, which is in the form of confidence, achievement, receiving respect of others, and also respecting others. And above all of this is when that person is really self-actualized, which is that person is accepting of others' behavior. The person is experiencing purpose in his life. There's much more meaning. There's a wonderful work-life balance. And that person is actually fulfilling the entire inner potential of that person's life, right? So this is what is available in corporate literature for the past 60 years or more, right? Anyone into organizational behavior, anyone learning psychology, anyone learning corporate culture, right, will actually know this particular paradigm. It's called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where everyone progresses from one level to another. But more important than all of this is the need for genuine happiness, right? Even you can go to a pauper. A pauper may be able to express genuine happiness, even though he may not have all the needs which are mentioned in Maslow's pyramid. Let's just read what is mentioned in this particular, saying. Some say they don't really know what they are looking for in life. This might be because instead of getting in touch with how they feel, they have led their lives according to how other people's expectations are. Right? So, for example, for all of us, right, especially when someone is coming from India, if you are not a doctor, if you do not do medicine, if you do not do engineering, then sometimes people see us as failures, right? Because society expects that for one to be genuinely happy, the person needs to go through the phase of life, which is, getting a good job, getting a good family, making as much wealth as possible, living in the most luxurious life. That is what the goal of life is, right? In fact, what has happened is because of this paradigm, because of how this has been inculcated in our lives, generations after generations, we feel that indeed that is the purpose of life, right? To gain as much wealth as we can, number one. Be as beautiful as we can, number two. Be as knowledgeable as we can. And it just goes on and on and on. But then, at the time of death, everything is taken away from us. Everything is taken away from us. Nothing remains. As we progress from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, you realize that your inner potential tells you that all of this is actually less important in life. Right? So we are all looking for genuine happiness. But where is the genuine happiness coming from? Is it coming from the latest iPhone which I have? Is it coming from me upgrading from a HDB flat to a condo to a landed property? Is it coming from from a Hyundai to a Bentley? Is that where genuine happiness is coming from? Actually, scriptures explain that that is not true, because the happiness that we are deriving is happiness from things, from material things. Since the material things are temporary, therefore that happiness which is derived from material things is going to be temporary, right? So what is more important? Although Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that, beyond psychological need comes love, and beyond love comes self-actualization, etc. But we know from the scriptures that the chance to be loved and to love, okay, that is what everyone is looking for. Everyone is looking for happiness. Everyone is looking to be loved by others. And everyone, all right, is looking to love someone. Sometimes we begin to love things, right? Things do not love us, but we love things. Sometimes we begin to love others. But the epitome of this love is when we can express this love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? That is when we will actually feel the highest happiness. So just to recap, right? We are looking for love. We are looking for happiness. But 99.9% of the population looks for this in material objects. Material objects or items, they are material in nature. Material meaning there is a beginning, there is an end. Since we are spiritual in nature, we are a spirit soul. We are not this body. We are not this material body. Our true essence is we are a spirit soul. And therefore, since we are a spirit soul, a material object cannot really make us happy. Only a spiritual item can actually make us happy, or a spiritual experience can make us happy, right? Therefore, while we are looking for happiness, while we finally know that happiness comes in serving others, the highest form of happiness is when we can express this as spiritual love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's only one happiness in life: to love and to be loved. And in this one happiness, the highest form is the spiritual bliss which we get when we engage in unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let me just take a pause here to see if it's all making sense to everyone. Anyone, just feel, Prabhu or Mataji, just feel free to unmute yourself and express if you feel this is not making sense or if this is making sense. I don't want it to be a one-way or unidirectional conversation. No one?
Yes, Prabhuji, it's true that genuine happiness is not from material things, but due to our conditioning, I think a lot of people cannot experience that. So it takes a while to understand genuine happiness, because people are stuck in their own world and they think happiness actually comes from material things, and they go on conditioning their life for this objective. But later on, I think they realize there are only a few souls who realize at the beginning that these things are temporary, but most of us actually are stuck in our own lives, actually material lives.
Wonderful point, Prabhu. Wonderful point. Right. So we are not able to actually experience this or realize this. And that's because of the conditioning which we have gone through. Not just in this life, but lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. The conditioning which we have gone through. It is only when we come in the association of other devotees, right? When a pure devotee has actually somehow activated, right? Activated this in our hearts. That's when we can actually begin to see this in a better way, right? The moment we start hearing to Hari Katha, the moment we start reading Bhagavatam, the moment we start being in the association of devotees, that's when, right, Paramatma in our heart begins to clean all of this conditioning in our hearts, right? Like a washing machine. All of this is cleansed slowly, right? The more we engage in Bhagavatam, the more we engage in association with other devotees, the more we engage in hearing, that is where all of, you know, lifetimes of dirt in our hearts, the conditioning will automatically get resolved. And then this realization comes in our lives. Okay. Very good point, Prabhuji. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Ravi Prabhuji.
Thank you for the earlier Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you started off with a very logical explanation. I think it's very well defended. It could lead to the idea of the conception of who we really are, because Maslow, in his paper, talked about the human condition, human motivation, the idea of human, the idea of the object being the human, and therefore anything that is related to the human is objectified till self-actualization. However, then you switch the idea of who we really are, our conception of who we are, which is a spirit soul. Therefore, since we are spirit soul, the entire needs of being a spirit soul differs from the material world. And you were clearly able to explain that. It leads to what we really need to do as spirit souls. That is to love and to be loved. And who is the ultimate source of love? That is Krishna. And so that was very nicely explained, very logical progression of the explanation. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Oh, Ravi Prabhu, the way you have articulated it is how a professor would have logically done it. And I really appreciate this. Thank you very much, Ravi Prabhu. Okay, so now this brings us that now we know, right, that for us to experience real happiness, it has to be spiritual in nature, because we are spiritual entity and we are not the material body, right? Material means there is a beginning and there is an end. Spiritual means it is eternal, right? In fact, spiritual happiness in Sanskrit is Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam. It just keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing, right? So now logically we come to the next phase of the discussion, which is, therefore, now that we know what happiness is all about, everyone wants to be loved and to love, right? Everyone wants to be loved by others and everyone wants to love a material object. But once that person brings about a paradigm shift in his life and understands what spirituality is, then that person realizes that it is not loving physical objects, but it is loving the supreme personality of Godhead, all right, his creation in the form of other spirit souls, etc. Okay. Therefore, then what is the purpose of life? How can we live a life of purpose? How can we ensure that, right, during our final minutes or our final days in life, we can be contented and tell ourselves that, you know what? Actually, I've lived a really solid, fulfilled life. Yeah. You know, right now, I met a friend recently and he told me that his mom is in the final stages of terminal illness. And the way she keeps herself occupied is, you know, she just watches comedy because that brings a lot of laughter to her, right? And the family is all telling her, yeah, we'll just keep on watching more comedy, watch more comedy. And then, you know, they'll just make you laugh and laugh. You will forget your sorrows. I tried to see how I could help that person. You know, are we trying to help the person who is going through this final phase with this, will comedy, which is material in nature, will that be able to help us in to really fulfill our heart, to fulfill our soul? Something for us to think about. How can we be helpful to others? Right? So then, what is the purpose of life? Right? So Ravi and Anuj Prabhu, you can easily answer this question. I would just want the rest of the participants in this class to explain to me what is their realization, therefore, on what is the purpose of life. In today's corporate world, even the government of Singapore is saying we want everyone to have a work-life balance, right? That's the new mantra. We want work-life balance. Mental health is another new mantra everyone is speaking about. Psychological safety is another big mantra everyone is speaking about. Government is going to be investing a lot in mental health, etc. Maybe the 20 of us on this call, which should come up together with a proposal to the government on, how we can actually help them on this, and then ensuring that people live a solid purpose. In fact, the Japanese, right, those who live in Okinawa, they have this concept called ikigai, right, where they say that, the purpose of life is when you understand what is driving you, what you like very much, and that activity can actually sustain you economically. At the same time, that activity is in big need in society, right? So if you bring these three circles together, right, the intersection of all these three circles would be your ikigai, right? Something which drives you, which is natural out of you, something which is required by society, and something which pays you economically and satisfy you. That is an ikigai, right? We bring it a few notches further. So there are so many of you on this call. Please unmute and tell me, what do you think, therefore, is the purpose of life? Is it just accumulating wealth and then not being able to spend the money, or using all this wealth on medical expenses? Or is it to beautify ourselves, right? To be as beautiful as possible, even at an older age, leveraging all the Botox and implants which are available? Or is it to keep on becoming a Gyani and get as much knowledge as possible, to publish research papers, to become a solid academic and a real intellectual? All right. Or is it to become as strong as we can till the last moment of our lives, to keep on living the most healthiest life? No, nobody wants to share what they feel. Hint, it's simpler than you think. Okay, let's move on.
So I think
Yes,
some of these
Manoj
things which
Prabhuji. Professor Manoj.
Hare Krishna. So
Hare
some of the
Krishna.
things you mentioned that like they might come in handy as well. Like you need to live a healthy and sustainable life. But I think the primary purpose of finding peace or happiness or joy is like you need to identify it early in your age, that okay, this gives me pleasure, whether it is serving others, whether it is reading scriptures, or whether, and all those things have to be a spiritual activity. It cannot be like, definitely like I have very little experience, but what accumulating wealth cannot sustain, like it cannot be a sustainable, peaceful thing for you. And that is something which has to come naturally. It should not be like you have done something and you have accepted blindly that okay, this does not give me happiness. You have to try it out and then accept it internally that okay, this is not helping me and I need to find the actual peace. And once you reach the paradigm that okay, serving others or reading scriptures or doing the japa or serving the Lord is my primary happiness, then
Okay.
you need to for a prolonged period of time and find a naturalized happiness in that. rather than other things. But yeah, some of the other partial things might be required to sustain a life, but might not be super critical. And anyways, Lord will arrange things which are critical for your necessity.
Okay, wonderful, Prabhu. I love this point because what you're saying is wealth is important, good health is important, beauty, of course, yeah, sometimes is important, right? And so these are all important, but over endeavoring for this is not going to help because all of us have our baggage of karma, right? And therefore, whatever we are supposed to get in life, we will get it based on all our past activities. We will get it, right? So, over endeavoring for this may not be necessary because sometimes, even over endeavoring for it, right, we need to do the best of our abilities, but over endeavoring, right, there is a difference between doing your best and over endeavoring. So, therefore, this is all important, right? But very important is if we can direct all of this in the service of Krishna. So, what does it mean? Wealth is important, right? Earning is important. But can I dovetail this earning in the service of Krishna? Right? Being an eloquent speaker, being an intellectual, right? Being able to grasp knowledge. This is all important. This is all great. But this is not the ultimate importance. But even with this talent or this capability or this prowess, how can I actually use this in the service of Krishna? Being good looking, etc. Wow, that's amazing. Can I use this in the service of Krishna? All right. So, amazing point, Manoj, which is like these are all important. Over endeavoring is not required. And whatever we have, how can we dovetail that in the service of Krishna? Amazing answer to this question on purpose of life, right? So the purpose of life is
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes.
Prabhuji,
Mataji?
yeah, all this, the wealth, health, knowledge, all these, like, things are materialistic, right? Just now we were discussing money, health, because we have a certain span of life. After then, even if we are dovetailing it everything with Krishna consciousness or in a service of Krishna, how can we say, like, this will be not there won't be end of it, because our health, our money, once we are gone, it's gone too. But when we are saying just dovetail everything to Krishna, how can we say, oh, it's a everlasting or long lasting?
Okay, good. Very good question. So let's say I have $1 million, Mataji, right? I have $1 million and I've been saving this. I've been lavishly using it on a lot of other material products, and I've not used any of this money in the service of Krishna, in the service of others, in the service of Krishna, for example. Then what happens is the entire amount of 1 million at the end of my life becomes zero because that amount of money I cannot bring to the next life. I can leave it for my children, yes, but then I'm a spirit soul, right? I'm a spirit soul and I am responsible for my own karma, right? So the entire material wealth which I had remained material and it became zero. Now, if I were a devotee, what I would do is I would use this material wealth in the service of Krishna. Maybe out of $1 million, I would spend X amount, right, in giving donations to the temples, in using it for preparing bhoga, in decorating the Lord, in having programs, etc. Then what happens is that material wealth, because it is dovetailed to Krishna, it has become spiritual in nature. Anything, even our time, once it's dovetailed in the service of Krishna, it becomes spiritual in nature. So now, what is happening is, Deepa Mataji, the same wealth which I had, it's now spiritualized. And therefore, it is not giving me karmic reactions anymore. Right? Even if I buy a house, but I'm using the house in the service of Krishna, right? Then the entire wealth which I have is not material. So instead of karma, right, it is now our karma. Meaning that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, amongst all syllabus, I am A or R. Okay? Therefore, our karma means this karma is used in the service of Krishna. Therefore, you do not get any negative repercussions or positive repercussions. What do I mean by negative repercussions? I have used that money to go to nightclubs. I've used that money in wrong purposes, and therefore I will have to pay the results for that. Okay? Or I use that money in building hospitals. I use that money in charitable activities. That is still karma. But the result is that I get positive points out of this. Because I've built hospitals, I've built clinics, I've given to charitable homes, etc. These are all amazing activities. And therefore, that material wealth which you had was not spiritualized, but that material wealth is now going to give me positive karma points in my next life. In my next life, I may not be born in Singapore, I may be born in Brahmaloka. Or I may still be born in Singapore or in the United States, etc. But I will be born in a very aristocratic family, in a very, very rich family. Right? So that is what I mean by material happiness. All right. And what happens in that particular situation when I'm born in that rich family, the moment I have exhausted that positive karma, then I'll go back to a normal life. That exhaustion could be in the form of me enjoying as much as I want in Brahmaloka, then coming back to planet Earth. Or me being born in a very, very rich family, but one fine day, the rich family will also go bankrupt. You see, so therefore, this is so nice. Everything is, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. It explains everything very nicely if you look at it holistically. Right? So, now that spiritual wealth, which was material earlier, but you had dovetailed in the devotional service of Krishna, then what that is doing is, that is ensuring that our karma is reduced, number one, and number two, right? Because we are connecting with the Lord. We are connecting to the Lord in a relationship which we have forgotten. If the Lord so desires, in our next life, we will come back as a devotee, or we will continue in our spiritual life until we reach a moment in time when the Lord feels that we can go back to the spiritual world and serve Him. So even that material wealth, which has become spiritual wealth, all right, because you have used it in the service of Krishna, all right, materially, the magnitude of it may remain the same, and we will still pass it on to the next generation. But what you have done is, you have earned the right. You have earned the right to be more connected to the Lord. You have earned the right to getting closer to the spiritual world. Is it okay, Mataji? So
Yes,
now,
sir.
now tell me, which is better? Is it just having material wealth, and then it becoming zero for me, but still being material to my family after I leave, or having that material wealth which has been dovetailed to the service of Krishna. And that is ensuring me that I will continue to become a devotee and finally serve the Lord in Goloka Vrindavan. And the material wealth which I have, if it's passed on to the next generation, then they can do whatever they want to do it. But at least it has allowed me to gain a right into having a conversation with Krishna. Okay. I love this question. Thank you very much, Mataji. Otherwise, it just looks like, hosh posh. Yeah, we are talking about spirituality, etc. But what is the real thing? It's an amazing question. Thank you very much, Mataji. Any other questions? And Anuj Prabhu and Ravi Prabhu, please feel free to answer on, because you guys, yeah, you have a lot of experience in this too.
No, we don't have experience, Prabhuji, and thank you. And this last point of yours was very nice actually. That after doing devotional activity or dovetailing things to Krishna, we actually earn the right to be connected with the Lord. That is a very important point, Prabhuji. I think that's the best point.
Because Krishna says Lord Brahma says, which is captured in Bhagavatam, Tattenu Kampa Susukmano. I've gone through so much of difficulties a devotee goes through so much of difficulty in life, but he needs to be assured that he has gained the right to Krishna's kingdom. Okay. So you see, that's why the Ambanis are very smart. While they have so much of wealth being generated on a daily basis, I do not know how many millions or billions, they are also using this in Krishna's service. Right? But they are also using it extensively in other material activities, which, is beyond our pay grade to have a discussion. That's between them and Krishna. All right? Many a times, once we get a little bit into devotional service, we become very judgmental also. I'm doing it correctly. Look at those guys. What are they doing? Right? Remember, that is between them and Krishna. I'll tell you, I had fallen into that trap many a times. Holier than thou, we feel that, we are much better than the rest of them. We do not know what is the relationship they have with Krishna. It is just between them and Krishna. Right? I need to stop being judgmental. There was one amazing poem written by Mahatma Das. Right? Last week we discussed, how he explains about improving the efficacy of our chanting. So Mahatma Das wrote an amazing poem. He says, somehow by Krishna's mercy, at the end of this life, I went to the spiritual world. But there in the spiritual world, I realized that, wow, I never expected this person to be there in Goloka Vrindavan. I never expected this person who was stealing the temple money to be there. I never expected this person who was always blaspheming devotees to be there. I never expected this person. And then I realized that it is between him and Krishna. I have got no right, all right? I have got just no right to be judgmental. I just found that a wake-up call for myself, right? Okay, so let's move on. Thank you, Mataji, Deepa Mataji. I mean, if you don't pose such questions now, then all of us will not learn. And it will not allow me to also understand and realize what I'm teaching actually, or what I'm sharing, not teaching, but sharing. So thank you for your amazing question. And I hope we tried to answer and, you're okay with it, all right? So what is the purpose of life? All right, this is what someone has said. If one were to express just in one word, it would have been happiness. The purpose of education must therefore accord with this purpose of life in school, right? So I'm not sure, was it John Lennon or George Harrison, one of the Beatles, when he was in school, the teacher asked, what would you like to be when you grow up? Right? So everyone said, I want to be a doctor, a pilot, a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, I just wanted to be happy. I just want to be happy. And the teacher said, you got the question wrong. All right. So, but he was right. He just wanted to be happy. And that's what all of us want. We want to be happy. But how do we become happy? That is when we reconnect with the Lord, when we reactivate the forgotten relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. Srila Prabhupada explains the human life is meant for attaining eternal and unlimited happiness by spiritual realization. Right? In this material world, to render service to the lotus feet of Govinda, the cause of all causes, and to see him everywhere, that is actually the ultimate goal of life. This much alone is the ultimate goal of human life, as explained by all the revealed scriptures. Therefore, everything else which we do is secondary. The most important is having a solid work-life balance, crafting out some time, all right, in reconnecting back with the Lord. When we chant, the mood is, oh Lord, I have forgotten my eternal relationship with you. Please allow me to reconnect with you. So if you forget everything in today's class, just remember, right? The ultimate purpose of life is to reconnect back with the Supreme Father whom we have forgotten. That's the ultimate purpose of life, to reconnect.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
I have a small question on this.
Yes, Christian
Why,
Bhagwan. Ji.
while we are in the current material world and we have got
Yes.
so many left, right enhancements or so many different thoughts and so many different engagements or distractions. On one hand, we can say, yes, that is a purpose of life. But at what stage and how do we realize that we have actually attained a thought that, yes, that's a purpose of life? Because I have seen myself also, it's still challenging for at this age that is this my purpose of life? Because we have been tuned or engaged in the materialistic world by virtue of growing up, by virtue of society.
Very
Virtue.
good.
So it's a very challenging thought to say, oh, that's the purpose of my life. Happiness, of course, I understand. Because sometimes I don't have regrets, so I'm happy, regardless of what happens. But then people in around me say, why you are happy but the situation is not good? That could be a different challenge. But when and how do we realize that we have thought the purpose of life is to meet the Supreme Lord?
Okay. Amazing. So Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, number one is, do your activities, do your karam to the best of your ability, and do not ignore or do not forsake the responsibility of what you are supposed to do. Okay, that's very important. Do your karam, right? You are an engineer, you are a software engineer, you are an AI expert. So, what is your work? Your work is to engage in activities which perfects your job, all right, which allows you to contribute back to society, to your company, etc. Not forsaking this duty. Then Krishna brings it one notch higher. He says that while doing this, reconnect or dovetail this activity in my service. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the moment we look away from Krishna, that is where Maya Devi feels empowered to take control of us. Okay? The moment we move away from Krishna, we look away from Krishna, Maya takes over. These three modes of material nature will just keep on binding us in this material world. Right? Be it mode of goodness, be it mode of passion, be it mode of ignorance. These three modes will just keep on binding us. Right? So now the solution is there in what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also saying, which is the moment we look away from Krishna, Maya will take over. Therefore, the solution is never to forget Krishna. All right. What's the meaning of never to forget Krishna? Never to forget Krishna simply means that whenever I have some time out of my work, right, I try to remember Krishna, to read about his message in the Bhagavad Gita, etc. So, Prabhu, life can just go on, right, in the auto mode. Waking up at 6 o'clock, getting ready for work, preparing breakfast for the family, going to office, being challenged in the workplace, coming back, going again, and then on the Friday, we go to the church and tell the priest, sorry, this is what the sin I've done. I give him $10. And then the next week again, I give him $10. And then the following week, I give him $20 because, I tell him that the next week I will not be able to come. I'm going on a holiday, right? So that is one auto mode of doing it. The more proactive way of doing it is, Prabhu, practice and perfect it, which is, I tell myself, consciously I tell myself that I'm not going to go in this auto mode. I'm not going to go in this auto mode. I'm not going to listen to what society has dictated to me. All right. Instead of doing my work and then finding time for Krishna, why don't I find time for Krishna first and then the rest of my work will come in? Last week, I explained that when Arjuna and Krishna got into this spiritual conversation, when Arjuna was reconnecting back to Krishna, that empowered him so much to actually do his mundane Kshatriya duty after that. Similarly, Stephen Covey, in his 7th Habit, explains that when we sharpen our axe, when we prepare ourselves in the morning, right, spiritually, by journaling, by doing a prayer, etc., that actually empowers us to face the material world better. If we have not sharpened our axe, we will go into the material world and we'll keep on chopping wood and realizing that, oh my God, my saw, after 8 hours, I'm still chopping the wood, but I'm not able to cut down the tree because my saw was not sharpened. You see, so it's like bringing a few concepts together to answer your question, Prabhuji. If we do not have a clear intention in bringing Krishna into the center of our life, then lifetime after lifetime, we will be orchestrating our life to the tune of what society wants us to do. All right? Even if there's difficulty, Prabhu, even if there's difficulty, always remember we must express gratitude to the Lord. Right? Have we forgotten all those days when the Lord orchestrated everything so nicely for us? Our kids went to good schools, our kids went to university, right? There was food on our table. Have we forgotten all that days when God had orchestrated everything for us? Now that we are going through a difficulty, right? Can we continue to express that gratitude in all this anxiety? That is what a Vaishnava would do in terms of expressing gratitude. When everything goes well, he expresses gratitude to the Lord. When something doesn't go well, he still remembers, just like Arthur Ashe, the famous tennis player. What did he say? I was in this Wimbledon, right? From 5,000 people, it came down to 5,000. From 5,000 people, it came down to 100, to 50, and then ultimately to the 4, and then to the finals 2. And I won. Lord was so kind, right? He gave me that victory. Now that I'm down with and I never asked him, why did you even give this to me? Now that I'm down with this terminal disease, right? What gives me that right to challenge him and ask him, why did you do this to me? Right? I I'm expressing gratitude in that for whatever he has given me, and I know, I'm convinced, I've got so much of trust in the Lord that there is always something at the end of it. You know, so Prabhu, it's very easy for me to say this, but you know, as we strengthen our spirituality, as we begin to do more and more, as we read deeper into the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, as we associate more with like-minded devotees, then you will realize. Look at Prabhupada. You know, he left Vrindavan at the age of 68. Can you imagine a sannyasi is having a nice ashram in the center of Vrindavan, right? Where a room is provided to him, all he needs to do is just write the purports, his realization, give Hari Katha, prasadam will come on his table. Kya zindagi hai yaar? Why did he have to go through all that challenge, beg for a ticket to go to the US, right? Reach US and realize, where have I come? Suffered 2 heart attacks on the ship, etc. Right? Because he realized, I can go, you know, auto mode, I can do something different for Krishna. Long-winded answer, but I hope I've tried to answer your question, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Okay. All right. So, once again, anyone, what is the ultimate purpose of life? Those who have not spoken, please, what is the ultimate purpose of life? 50 minutes we have discussed this.
Blissful happiness.
Blissful happiness. What kind of happiness? Material happiness or spiritual happiness?
It doesn't matter as long as it is given by Krishna.
Okay, so that's spiritual happiness. Very important is how, but that's not the purpose. That's the goal. Okay, that's the goal of life. Yes, that is what we are seeking. But finally, our proactive purpose should be to reconnect back to the spiritual, to the Lord whom we have forgotten. So, you know, just to summarize the last 55 minutes, our purpose in life is to reconnect back to the Supreme. That's all. To reconnect back through reading, through kirtan, through spiritual activities, to remembering Him, through associating with other devotees, to honoring prasadam. That's all. Okay, just to reconnect back. That is our ultimate goal. Right? So, you know, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata adyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. Right? So whenever and wherever there is a decline in dharma, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Okay? So you have adharma or irreligion at one level. From this verse, we can actually see that beyond adharma is dharma. What is dharma? Religious practice. Okay? Sometimes dharma is also called the purpose of life. Right? But does it stop there? This is, you know, this is just at the starting of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 4, verse number 7. Krishna is explaining this. I come whenever there is a decline in religious practice and a predominant rise of irreligion, and therefore I come to re-establish religious practices, dharma. Okay, everybody with me? Straightforward.
Yes, Prabhu.
4.7. Okay, after class you can go and read. Now, how do we bring it a notch higher? Krishna says, I came to re-establish dharma or re-establish religious practice. But now, Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, abandon all varieties of religion or religious practices and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. 4.7 Krishna is saying, I came to establish religious practices, dharma. And now Krishna is saying, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mukshayishyami ma suchaha. Right? So there are some academic scholars who say, maybe it's wrongly written. What Krishna is saying is, abandon all varieties of irreligion. That's what some academic scholars are saying. But no, there's no typo. All right, Krishna himself is saying, abandon all varieties of religion, not irreligion. It is not sarva adharman. It is sarva dharman. Right? So some academic scholars, they are saying, no, maybe there's a typo. Or else how can it be 4.7 is speaking about dharma, and now Krishna is saying, forget about dharma. So how to reconcile this? We bring a new gradation called paradharma. Okay, para means utmost, okay, or the highest, just like in the English word perimeter. Perimeter means around everything. Okay, so paradharma means you have, first and foremost, you have adharma, against religion, against the four principles of religion. Okay, against meat eating, against telling the truth, against engaging in gambling, etc., etc., etc. That is all adharma. Beyond this is dharma, where you engage in the religious principles. Now Krishna is saying, beyond this dharma is paradharma, which is beyond all this, O Arjuna. Just surrender unto me. Just reconnect back to me, and I shall deliver you from all the sinful activities. Do not fear. And that brings it so nicely, reconnects it so nicely to our purpose in life. Krishna is saying in 18.66, just reconnect back to me. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away in charity, do it as a service to me. That is paradharma. Okay? Any questions? Any realization? Ravi Prabhu?
Prabhu, this is my favorite verse, 1866.
Okay.
It keeps coming back to me again and again. So whenever I go to my own class, that is what I want to do. Krishna, this lesson is for you. And then when I exit the lesson, I'll say thank you for allowing me to give this lesson. I also realize that activities made in the mode of goodness, like charity and generosity, it serves to give a smile on other people's faces, but you don't smile. I don't smile in the sense that I'm giving this service. I realize that even that is not enough. So Paradharma and culminating in 1866 in Bhagavad Gita was a very powerful source of inspiration for me to go beyond just religious practices, but offering whatever I could in my human physical form in service to Krishna. And I think what you have just mentioned, Adharma, Dharma, Paradharma, is a nice synopsis in a sense of Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you very much. Anuj Prabhu, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Prabhuji, so I've learned this new word, like called paradharma, because I know that there's karma, vikarma and akarma. So I think this relates well, that dharma, adharma and paradharma. So it's a new word for me, and it's very nice actually. Paradharma 1866 is, it's all making sense probably. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, this is something I learned from my spiritual master, my Shiksha Guru, and therefore I wanted to share with you because it comes in very nicely with our first hour of discussion. So now let's move on to Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So we are in Canto number 3, chapter number 5, where Vidura is having a conversation with Maitreya Muni, right? So Vidura is anxious to learn about Krishna's leaving, right? And whatever messages which Krishna had mentioned to Maitreya as well as to Uddhava, right? Vidura is just wanting to hear this again and again. He first approached Uddhav and he asked Uddhav. Uddhav was very reluctant in sharing this. In fact, when Uddhav started discussing, he did not even discuss about Krishna's disappearance from earth. He just spoke about Krishna's activities in Vrindavan and then Krishna's activities outside of Vrindavan. And then, spoke about what actually happened, blah, blah, blah. But then he said that, you know what? Both Maitreya Muni and I were fortunate to actually hear from Krishna just before Krishna departed from this material world. I am very, very young. I'm very, very inexperienced. It's best that you go, right? You go and listen and take instructions from Maitreya Muni. And therefore, Vidura went and heard as much as he could from Maitreya Muni, right? So there's this samvad or this discussion with Maitreya Muni. So one thing which we learn is actually Vidura himself being a paradharmic soul, he's already a place of pilgrimage. He did not have to go for all those pilgrimages, but he's teaching us. He already knows the essence and the purpose of life, etc. But it's because of Parikshit Maharaj, because of us, that this discussion is being scribed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's move on. Vidura is just wanting to hear about Krishna Katha. And he tells Maitreya Muni that, maybe what will actually satisfy me is Hari Katha, about Krishna. I want to hear more about Krishna, right? More about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because the whole world can be transformed into Vaikuntha if all worldly activities are dovetailed with Krishna Katha. Right? So that was the power of Krishna Katha. That is the power of Krishna Katha. Everyone, the whole of human society can become satisfied. Because as spirit souls, once we realize we are spirit soul, the material happiness will be insufficient to satisfy us. We need spiritual happiness to satisfy us. That spiritual happiness comes with engaging in devotional service, primarily Harikatha. Right? So Vidura exclusively tells Maitreya Muni, I don't want to hear about the social, political issues, nothing of that sort. Just speak Harikatha. Right? So Vyasadev, then Bhagavatam explains in verse number 12 of chapter number 5, Vyasadev's purpose of writing Mahabharata was actually for the less intelligent people, right? So that they can, they have a lot of interest in mundane stories, mundane topics, all right, instead of philosophy of life. But while they are starting to read the Mahabharata, the amazing storytelling, etc., then a chapter will come or a few chapters will come of the Bhagavad Gita, you see, and then they are able to, mundane people or the less intelligent people, that's where they can actually leapfrog their intelligence once they start reading the Bhagavad Gita. Once realizations from the Bhagavad Gita are explained to them. So Vyasadeva had an agenda, right? He had an agenda of writing the Mahabharata. It was for the common men in the hope that they will uplift their consciousness. It's exactly like, the first aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, which is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Only when one has finished the business of mundane enquiries in the marketplace of sense gratification, only once a person has completely finished this mundane business can one make relevant enquiries regarding what is the purpose of life. Right? Who is the Para Brahman? What is the spirit soul? What is the connection between the spirit soul and the super soul? And we move on to verse number 13. Krishna Katha can increase the indifference to all other living things and vanquish all miseries without delay. Right? So, Krishna Katha can increase the indifference to all other activities. Right? Therefore, we will begin to see that material activities are having their own place, but spiritual activities are having their own place too. Right? We will begin to see every living entity as part and parcel of God. We will begin to see that actually the ultimate purpose of every living entity is to reconnect back to the Lord. It's just that a pig, a dog, they cannot realize this because they do not have sufficient intelligence. And therefore, they have to go through the transmigration of the soul until the soul reaches the human form of life. In the human form of life, Krishna has sufficiently, right, sufficiently nurtured the intelligence of that person to allow the person to realize that this mundane world is what I had expressed interest to Krishna for. I wanted to enjoy independently from the world. And therefore, Krishna gave me all of these various life to enjoy myself. All right. If you look at a hog, a pig sometimes, eats feces, droppings. It eats droppings. To us, it might be like, my God, what are this pig's doing? But if you ask the pig will be, I am having a gala life. I am enjoying life. It is none of your business. All right. Therefore, every living entity is enjoying. The pigeons are mating every few minutes. They are enjoying life because as the spirit soul, we wanted to enjoy independently from the Lord. The rabbits, everyone is enjoying life in their own way until we reach the human form of life where we are asked to realize that actually just regular enjoyment is not going to help us. It is just going to bind us again and again and again into this material world. Okay? So, verse number 14. Persons who are against the topics of the Lord are pitied by the pitiable. Right? So, there will be a lot of people who do not wish to have any engagement with the Lord. They feel the entire world is it has just come by chance. They do not believe that it was orchestrated by the Lord. No, everything is by chance it happened. And therefore, Vidura is saying, I also pity them because I see how their duration of life is spoiled by eternal kala or time, while they involve themselves in presentations of philosophical speculation, theoretical ultimate goals of life, and different modes of rituals. Okay, so Vidura is saying, I pity them. So please tell me Hari Katha. Tell me more about Krishna. Right? And Bhagavatam also explains, Prabhupada's purport explains that when we are hearing the topics of Krishna, it is equal to meeting Krishna face to face. And according to the devotees who are situated in pure devotional service, that is the highest goal of life, to see Krishna face to face. Right? So then Vidura continues to say that, I want just the essence of all the topics. Speak about the essence. He starts by also asking about the Purusha avatars, right? About the different forms of Vishnu, right? We know in our classes from the Bhagavad Gita, from Bhagavatam, that, right, from Krishna, right, the first expansion is Balaramji or Sankarshan, right? Then comes Mahavishnu or Karunadakshayi Vishnu. From Karunadakshayi Vishnu, right, from the breathing, from the pause of Karunadakshayi Vishnu, millions of universes appear. Within each and every universe, there is a Brahmanda by itself, and there is another Vishnu there. All right, and in that Vishnu, right, there will be Brahma emanating from his navel. Right, that Vishnu is called Garbhodakshayi Vishnu because this is a Garbh, right? And from that Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, Brahmaji is the secondary creator within each of this universe, right? Taking instructions from Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and Garbhodakshayi Vishnu then expands into billions of atoms, into billions of living entities as the Paramatma in each of these living entity. And the Paramatma or the other form of Vishnu is the Chirodakshayi Vishnu. Okay, so Vidura was undoubtedly very, very eager to hear about Krishna, but at the same time, he was overwhelmed because Krishna had just passed from this visible world. And therefore, he wanted to hear about him. He wanted to hear about his expansions as the Purusha incarnations, where Krishna is manifesting the full potency for creation and maintenance of this cosmic world. Right? And therefore, the activities of the Purusha incarnation are just an extension of the activities of the Lord. So now Maitreya Muni is expressing happiness, right? So when we go to a spiritual master, when we go to a guru, as much as the association is important, but Srila Guru Maharaj wants us to ask questions, wants us to surface our doubts, and therefore we need to ask intelligent questions to the spiritual master. Now Maitreya Muni is saying, by your questions, you are showing mercy both to the world and also to me. Why is Maitreya Muni saying also to me? Because when Guru Maharaj is answering a question, it also helps in his deeper realization. It helps him in remembering Krishna further. All right? And it helps him in serving this devotee who is asking the question. And now Maitreya Muni says that you were born from Srila Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is none other than the compiler of all the scriptures. And because in your past life you were Yamaraj, right? You were Yamaraj or Dharmaraj. You were cursed by Mandavya Muni to come back to earth because Yamaraj had wrongly given a punishment statement to Mandavya Muni, right? And therefore, Mandavya Muni had cursed Yamaraj that you go back to earth, right? Have a little bit of a taste of your medicine and then come back. But of course, this is a little bit of an orchestration by the Lord. Okay. So for your good self, the Lord left the instructions with me. So Maitreya Muni is explaining that actually Krishna gave me all of these instructions so that I can pass this to you. Right? I'm worthy of receiving this mercy of Krishna just because of you. If not for you, I would not have earned the right to receiving this mercy. Just see how humble Maitreya Muni is. So then Maitreya Muni now explains, because Vidura had asked about the Purusha avatars, so Maitreya Muni now explains, okay, from Mahavishnu, right, comes the three modes, and then the Mahatattva, and then the false ego, right? The false ego experiences the three modes of material nature, right? And then comes the senses, and then the sense objects, and then the five elements, right? And then the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego. So we have learned all of this in Bhagavad Gita. We learned a little bit in Bhagavatam earlier on. This is a summary chapter, right? So we will not go through this. And the Lord's purpose of, behind the entire creation is because of the compassion He has for us. We wanted to enjoy independently from the Lord. We were insistent. The Lord said, okay, I will do this creation, but once you are tired, tell me and I'll bring you back. But you need to earn the right to come back also, right? So the Lord orchestrated this, gave us all the elements, etc., for us. Of all the physical elements, all the qualities are due only to the final touches of the Lord's grants. Okay, so the Lord first produced and introduced all of this into each of the Brahmanda, each of the universes. Okay, then Brahmaji started creating, right, bringing these elements together. But remember, right, we learned elements, right, the periodic table elements, they have to come together and then they form compounds. Similarly, all of the elements produced by the Lord, they were just waiting. They are demigods waiting and waiting and waiting. We cannot combine together until the Lord gives its glance or his touch to these elements. Then the elements gain the energy of combining together. You see? So beautiful, right? So the controlling deity of all the above mentioned physical elements are actually empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. And they are embodied by eternal time under the external energy of Maya. And they are all Lord Vishnu's parts and parcels. Because they are entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord. Okay, very nice. They were just waiting, yeah. Krishna says, do the best of your duty, right? Do not be attached to not doing your duty, and do not be attached to the results of your duty. So therefore, these elements who are all demigods, they are waiting. We need to do our duty. We need to do our duty. Please help us. And therefore, they are offering fascinating prayers to the Lord. Amazing prayers. Remember, before going to the Lord, we need to glorify the Lord, right? In our prayers, we need to make the Lord or request the Lord by somehow making the Lord remember all of his friends, all of his associates. Because when the Lord remembers all of the associates, like what Kunti does, and the Lord becomes so compassionate, wow, you have reminded me of my friends, etc. So this devatas for the elements, right? They are now praying that, you are, this is your lotus feet are the glorious shelter for all of us. The lotus feet of the Supreme Lord are the umbrella, all right, or the shelter for all the miseries, right? The Supreme Lord, right? We know Bhagavan means full of the opulences. One of the opulences is that he's full of knowledge. And the Lord, these are his prayers. They are prayers to the Lord. He's also the source of the Ganga, right? The Ganga actually comes from the Lord. And because he's the source of the Ganga can also vanquish all sinful reactions. Once the Ganga even asked the Lord, what's going to happen to me? Everyone is coming and putting their sins to me. The Lord says that, you will be helped by the pure devotees who come. And therefore, the Devatas, they continue to glorify the Lord. They're saying that, your lotus feet, your shelter can actually reveal to us what our real purpose of life is and can make us detach from our material engagement. Oh Lord, your lotus feet can also award us remembrance and courage, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita I'm the source of all remembrance. And if he so desires, he can be the source of all forgetfulness in us. Okay. And then the Devatas, they continue to glorify the Lord. You know, they speak about who are the qualified people who can get the mercy of the Lord and who are the unqualified people. Just like the sun rays are open to everyone. But if we lock ourselves in a dark room, is it our fault or is it the sun's fault? No, the sun is just providing the mercy to all of us, but we have chosen to remain in a dark room, right? And therefore, we are unqualified. The mercy is there. Do we want to capture the mercy? Right? We just need to activate ourselves to receive the mercy. So the unqualified people are in this mamaham conception. I am the one who has done this. It is because of me only that this house is created. It's because of me only that the company is going on, right? Providing all the profitability, etc. So Krishna says these are unqualified people who think they are the ones. I, me, all right? I, me, my. This is my family. This is my house. And unqualified to receive the mercy of the Lord, those who are locked up in their dark rooms are those who are offensive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who are offensive to other devotees, who are judgmental, right? Who are materialistic, who do not see beyond the material. They are all unqualified. Who are the qualified then? Okay, the qualified individuals are those who aim to relish the Lord's pastimes, the Lord's activities, the Lord's description. They want to drink the nectar of Hari Katha, all right? And therefore, those who are engaging in devotional service, who are engaging in these paradharmic activities, they are much, much, much superior than those who are just engaging in self-realized knowledge or the jnanis. And finally, the demigods of these elements created by the Lord are saying, you know, we have a duty to perform. We are supposed to perform our duties to the best of our abilities. And we are not supposed to be attached to the results. But oh Lord, we are all disunited. Please, by your mercy, impregnate your external energy, your Maya, all right, so that we can combine together. Give us direction, how we can combine together and therefore serve you. Because you have a mission, right? You have a mission to bring all of these lost souls back to the material world, back to the spiritual world after they have sufficiently enjoyed what they have wanted to enjoy. Okay? So therefore, the demigods continue. Just give me 2 more minutes. We will finish our class. The prayers to the demigods. They are saying, you know, the Lord, your lotus feet are the shelter of all the surrendered souls. Only surrendered souls, because the rest of them, they have not earned the right. Because they are just engaging in regular material activities. The Lord's lotus feet are the source of all knowledge. Okay. So we spoke about this. We spoke about who the unqualified people are. Even unqualified people like the Nala Kuvera and the Mani Griva, right? Remember in Damodar pastimes, even though, you know, they were living amongst the demigods, they had to undergo the punishment of becoming trees in their next life. Okay, but then the grace of a devotee, right? Narada Muni was such that Narada Muni also blessed them that just wait, the Lord will come and deliver you. Okay, so like this, drinking Harikatha, we spoke about this, right? And the pleasure of the bhaktas are, you know, they just, lifetime, they just want to be serving Krishna. They're not even bothered about merging into the Brahman effulgence, etc. right? So we explained all of this, and now we will get into chapter 6 of Canto number 3 next week. So with that, I will stop our class and see if you have any questions. Hare Krishna, Priyanka Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I'll send you something. Last week your friends had invited you to the Sikh temple. So there is a amazing analysis of how many times Hari, Ram, Bhagavan, Mukunda, Krishna is explained or mentioned in the Guru Granth Sahib. It's a nice analysis.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Actually, she is like, she belongs to Radha Swami. She
Nice.
followed and she wanted to attend satsang over here in
Okay.
Singapore. I took her to the satsang ghar and gurdwara.
Yeah. So Radha Swamiji was in Singapore last year. My mom's mother is, my mother's mother is a disciple of Radha Swami. So I took my mother to hear him. Yeah. Philosophy-wise is the same, except that they believe
Yeah,
in
Prabhuji, I was in satsang ghar. I was listening satsang after that, right from 10 p.m. So this was completely same what you tell us. Completely same.
Yeah, I enjoyed the session, except that they do not see Bhagwanji as the highest form of the Lord, right? For them, it's like the energy of the Lord. Yeah,
Yeah.
philosophy-wise is very, very, very similar, except that we see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. But it's okay. It's all right. Yeah. Okay, Bhagwanji, how are you? I'm missing your association, man. Are you there, Bhagwanji? Okay. Bhagwan as in Bhagwan Das, Bhagwan Prabhu, not Krishna Bhagwan, of course. Okay, so thank you very much for all of you who have joined today's class, and thank you very much for also participating in the discussions. It's important, that when we have questions, we need to surface these questions so that we can learn from each other, right? This is a very, very safe haven, a psychological safe space, so you don't worry, nobody's going to be judging us. We learn from each other. All right, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.